one of the things that a lot of CPAs do is they want to minimize your taxes this year, but they may not be looking at the long-term effects of it. And so one of the big things that happens is, especially since we all get outsized returns for our clients, they'll have these big IRAs later in retirement, and they're going to be paying some big taxes on the RMDs because those RMDs are going to grow over time. So this kind of shows a couple approaches where one is if you basically try to minimize your taxes at the beginning, you're going to have these light blue ones show up later, you're up in a higher tax bracket. So you're paying a lot of taxes. But what you can do is stuff, for instance, what I'll do is when clients first retire, they may not start Social Security until they're 70 or 70 years old, right? So there might be 4 or 5 years where they're not really have much income. So I take those 5 years and basically take extra money out of the RMD, out of the IRA, either convert it to a Roth or just use it for living expenses, but try to spend down the IRA some during those lower tax years and fill these lower tax brackets. That green one is the lowest tax bracket.
So when you say about focusing on taxes and like not planning outward, like what is one of the biggest mistakes that you see?
Well, what I find is that the financial planning software and the stuff that I use too assumes that what you should do is keep everything in the tax deferred accounts as long as possible and spend the non-tax protected stuff like the regular brokerage account, right? But the problem is that when you're doing that, then those IRAs are growing for a long period of time before you start taking the money out. And now that the RMDs don't start until 73 or even 75, those accounts are going to grow to astronomically large accounts, right? So you're going to pay higher taxes, but in addition to that, you have to pay an IRMAA surcharge on your Medicare insurance. So you could go from paying, instead of paying 290 a month, you could go to like 380, 470, I think next one's 5 something. So you could, in theory, pay an extra $100 to $200 a month on your Medicare insurance in retirement. That alone is a few $1,000s just on that. So the average investor thinks they're buying an S&P 500 and they're getting all their risk spread across 500 stocks. I knew we were concentrated. I was actually kind of shocked by the level of concentration. I didn't know it was quite that high. I knew it was quite high for the tech stocks, but basically the top 20 stocks are almost half of the index now. So really 20 of the stocks is half the index, and the other, 480 stocks are the other half of the index. So, I mean, that's kind of insane, right? Saying the affluent don't really care about tariffs and taxes because they only spend, well, I think he said, like less than 20% of their income on, on consumer-based things. And then, so they don't really care because most of their money's in the market, right? So the market keeps going up and they're getting richer. But the people that are living paycheck to paycheck, those tariffs and inflation have really killed them. And so now their basically net wealth has gone down because they're paying more for everything because 90% or 100% of their income goes to basically living expenses, right? So that was an interesting point.